Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. William Woods, and I am the Faculty Council co-chair. I will be your host for this session, Analyzing Social Movements Through Critical Thinking and Shareable Media. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but I encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, keep your eye on the chart for a link to help session feedback survey. Now, I'm pleased to introduce to you Dr. Jorge Cardenas, Dr. Avisha Sadeghinejad, and Dr. Murad Abel, all from Ashford University.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, happy to be here today. Thank you for attending this session. I know there's been back-to-back sessions, so thank you for staying tuned in. Like Dr. Woods mentioned, we work for the Forbes School of Business and Technology. I myself work as one of the department chairs. Dr. Abel and Dr. Sadeghinejad work as lead faculty members. So today, my colleagues and I will be presenting on the topic that I believe is really relevant for the times we're living in right now in the United States. Specifically, I think it has to do with the fact that we've seen a lot of civil discourse that has increased significantly over the last 6 months. As we know, probably mainly due to the pandemic, recent events surrounding racial injustice, but also the presidential election that is ongoing. So over the next 20 minutes, we'll talk through some of the relationships between social movements, critical thinking, and shareable or social media. So it's not easy to define what a social movement is. However, what it is not is a political entity. One definition of social movements is that it's an organized yet informal social entity that engages in extra-institutional conflict to achieve some important goals. Such goals can vary from a specific government policy to trying to initiate or influence a broad cultural change within society. In comparison, political entities such as a political party or interest group are relatively stable and have a direct connection to national institutions and also national leaders. The American sociologist, Dr. Herbert Blumer, was one of the first original scholars of social movements. And based on his research, including observations of social movements, he identified 4 stages in the life cycle of social movements, which are presented here in this slide. The first one is emergence. So this is often when social movements begin, often due to widespread feelings of discontent by a small number of individuals. During this emergent stage, there is no defined strategy for planning and achieving goals. The second stage is called coalescence. So this is characterized by the coming together of individuals who share similar feelings of discontent. During this stage, there's often demonstrations and the development of a strategy for the group. So as you move through the different development stages, you see a little bit more organization that happens amongst the people that have the same goals with respect to social movements. The third phase is bureaucratization. This is when policies are actually created by the social movement and are executed by the trained staff. So at this point, there's already individuals working cohesively on the social movement goals. The last stage is called decline. So this is the last stage in the development of a social movement. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the social movement will fail. It may mean that it is repressed. And what it means by repression is that when authorities or agents acting on behalf of authorities use measures to control or destroy a social movement. An example is when governments pass laws outlining specific movement activities of organizations. A similar example is when governments justify attacks on social movements by declaring them somehow dangerous to the public. Another example of decline is co-optation. This occurs when social movement leaders come to associate with authorities or movement targets more than with social movement constituents. An example is when a leader goes and works for a target organization to try to change things from within, but instead they themselves become integrated into the organization and its values. So this is kind of drinking the Kool-Aid once you start working for your adversary. Another example of co-optation is when leaders are paid off or bribed to influence the social movement. Another representation of decline is when a social movement actually has success. So this is because the social movement has achieved their goals. An example of this is the labor movement in the United States in the early to mid 1900s. Another representation of decline stage is failure. So many social movements decline because they don't achieve their goals or organizational management issues. So there's organizational management strife within the social movement, so the social movement ultimately fails. The last stage that Blummer pointed out was, or identified, was related to establishment with the mainstream. So this is when social movement goals and ideologies are adopted by the mainstream. So once they're adopted by the mainstream, there is really no need for a social movement. So what we have here is a couple of examples that you might be familiar with. The first one is the social movement Black Lives Matter that was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal related to the killing of Trayvon Martin and reinforced with the killing of George Floyd. The movement hopes to bring attention to violence inflicted on Black communities. The second bullet here is Yanagara Center for Citizenship and Democracy. This is based in India and founded in 2001 as a nonprofit organization which mission is to transform the quality of life in Indian cities and towns by working with citizens to catalyze active citizenship in neighborhoods and with governments to institute reforms to city governments. One of the organization's major initiatives is a website called IPaidAbribe.com. I urge you guys to take a look at that website. It's pretty interesting. That website seeks to fight corruption through crowdsourcing and the collective reporting of information in India. So it's a way that individuals can post a specific information regarding to bribes or corruption that they actually have experienced within the Indian government. A third social movement is the Women's March. This movement seeks to harness the power of diverse women and their communities to create transformative change in civil rights, disability rights, immigrant rights, and environmental justice. The last example that I have here is an older example, but equally important and historical. The South Indian National Congress, the African National Congress, and the Pan-African Congress. These three organizations and social movements were credited with the eventual demise of apartheid in South Africa, as many of you know, which is the legislative system and government policies that attempted to segregate white and Black citizens within South Africa. So now we'll move on to social movements and how it's related to social marketing. Dr. Avisha?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Cardenas. So we know that social structures do have a nature of their own. And there have been different models that tried to explain social structures. But one model that we used pretty helpful for our research was the social ecology framework, or CEF model, which explain how social marketers can utilize the power of different levels of social structures to push for behavior change across society. So as you can see, the bottom, the dark orange level is the first level of these structures. Before I explain these four levels, I just wanted to say that this framework believes that there are four structures nested around individuals, like Russian dolls. So the innermost level is the microsystem, which consists of activities, social roles, interpersonal relationships that individuals experience in a face-to-face setting. So what social marketers can do to change behavior to promote critical thinking and at this level is to use different forms of social media and networking platform to promote, engage, and encourage critical thinking and understanding of multiple perspectives among individuals at this level. The next level is the mesosystem level, which is a system of microsystems and is comprised of links and processes that occur between the small groups of individuals, like schools, workplaces, clubs, neighborhoods, small communities around, the immediate self. And the role of social marketers at this level to promote critical thinking is to design strategies that can be utilized in institutions or organizations or like more of a formalized structures. The third level is the exosystem level, which is the processes and links that occur around individuals' immediate community, or what is called upstream forces. Social marketers at this level can use traditional and digital media to introduce, to encourage, and to invite people to critical thinking advantages and show them how critical thinking approaches and the positive results of critical thinking can be very helpful. And the last level, as you can see here, is the overarching configuration of a given culture, belief system, or bodies of knowledge. And social marketers' role at this level is to influence national consciousness. For example, challenging institutional racism, sexism, ethnocentrism, and any other ism of nationally embedded beliefs. So with this explanation of the theoretical framework around social structure, you may ask, what is in it for me? So I give floor to Dr. Murad Abel to answer that question for you.
Thank you. So I'm going to cover, I'm Dr. Murad Abel. I'm just going to cover this section. So the one thing that you have to think about is, are you an active or a passive promoter of media? We are inundated with lots of information in today's world. And every time we turn on our computer, when we're in a meeting, we're getting dings, we're getting buzzed. Most of us tune out a lot of it, but the vast majority of American society and even on the globe is connected in some ways. So media becomes a way of influencing, but people don't often think about when they reshare a tweet or they write something, often they don't think about the impact of that, whether or not they're actively promoting this or they sort of passively promoting the media. Do they own the concept themselves? So active promoters use critical thinking to reach out, to create personal agreement and acceptance of ideas that bring new influencers, right? They're trying to create and build these social networks. And, passive promoters sort of blindly share stuff. That's why sometimes comedy works so great in social media, because people share it because of a feeling and because it's funny, but they're not actually thinking always about the meaning and the message, right? It's part of marketing, whether we're talking about a social movement or we're talking about marketing strategy, it is one and the same. Whether we're talking about politics, we're talking about movements in the American society or anything else, we are sharing ideas and concepts. In the online format, the extent and reach can be much farther. Next slide, please. So you are a member of the microsystem. When you share information, you have responsibilities to yourself and to other people around you. And our enthusiasm sometimes gets the best of us. But if we take a moment and we just think about what we're doing and what we're sharing to ensure that it really reflects our own personal value systems, we'll have a more responsible online media, we'll have a more responsible social media networks, and we can be influencers in a positive way. So you want to evaluate the content. You want to understand the nature of the content and what the essential message is of it. If you just click and share, nobody's going to know what you're talking about. They're going to get the message, but you're sharing something that you're not personally connected to. And that can have ramifications, but your voice is not necessarily being heard. It's somebody else's voice. Review the alternative perspectives. Understand that there are going to be alternative perspectives on just about everything. Doesn't matter what the conflict is, doesn't matter what movement it is, there are going to be alternative perspectives. And if you can look at that and understand the majority views, the different types of opinions out there, you now can critically evaluate and use critical thinking. And you want to move beyond the context. Understand before you share, is this going to be important in the long run? We've seen people flame stuff out there on media, and you have to concern yourself with its overall impact to you, right? So you want to think about it, whether or not this is going to be socially appropriate, whether it's going to shed the light of importance on your movement, or it's going to cause other problems. Check in with yourself. Make sure that you understand and you actually believe what you're sharing. I checked in with myself. I believe this. I believe X, Y, Z. I've thought about it. I've looked at all the different perspectives. And I believe that this message truly represents my value systems. And then own it. Once you send it, you own it. Once you've come to the conclusion of the meaning of that message and all the alternative perspectives and how it's going to impact the environment around you and whether or not you personally believe it, you own that message. You are now an active promoter on the things that you believe in. Next slide. So we have controversy and we have course management. So I'll give you an example that sort of brought to the forefront this issue. We have an instructor, we have a student, we have a new movement the Black Lives Movement. We have a new movement and not everybody's on the same page. And the student shared something about that movement. The professor did not give the response that the student had hoped for. And we had an ensuing conflict between student and the professor. And both had an opportunity to learn something. The professor had an opportunity to learn how to promote active engagement and discussion on topics, but also sensitivity to the different varying perspectives. The student had an opportunity to learn that there are going to be alternative perspectives. And that's very hard for some people to come to a conclusion, especially when we vehemently and we have a lot of passion over a topic. So these cultural differences, these political differences, these emotionally charged situations that we find ourselves in real life became part of our classroom. And as a university, we have responsibilities, right, to not only teach our students how to deal with conflict, but be an open dialogue for varying perspectives. And that can be difficult in an online classroom where, everything's obviously recorded, everybody's, talking, and we have to be able to find a way to connect with other people on a human to human level, right? And that can be difficult in an online classroom. People start flaming and they start talking without thinking. So our instructor's role is to refer to the class policies. You have to go back to the class policies and you have to say, okay, we need to have a civil discussion. You may not agree with everybody. We're going to have a civil discussion. Always maintain a neutral posture and position. Don't get personally involved, especially when these topics are highly controversial and you're going to have people on both sides arguing different things. I think as a professor, our job is to sit back a little bit. We're not saying don't be an active participant in life, but in that course room, we want to create an environment where we can have people discuss and understand these topics, so that you wanna be as neutral as you possibly can. And you can help, and I've seen it where students are really advocating for one cause or another, but that can cause problems for some students. And let them learn from each other and help them manage your conflicts and then think through those alternatives. So we might ask questions more than we give answers in those situations. We might just ask people, okay, what do you feel about that? What does that mean to you, right? And is there any alternative? There will be some students, if you ask them to list some alternatives to their perspective, they may have a hard time giving you that. And that's a problem, right? That means that they're on one way of thinking, and it'll be very difficult for them if they cannot find any alternatives to that explanation to critically think and to engage other people in a respectful way. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Dr. Murad. So right now I'm going to talk about some tactics that we as instructors can use in our classrooms to promote critical thinking. And even these tactics can go beyond the classroom, and you can even use it in your personal life. So the first one is to help our students understand how to practice multiple perspective thinking. We can ask our students to see an issue from a variety of viewpoints or positions in order to gain a comprehensive understanding of that issue. We can ask them, okay, how would people from different socioeconomic background, or from different age or gender, or from different ethnic or racial group would view this point? So when they try to see the issue from different viewpoints, they will understand how bringing multiple perspectives to the issue can help to provide a comprehensive big picture of the issue. So I have one example of this multiple perspective practice in one of my classes. Jorge, could you please click? So in this journal assignment, we ask our students to take a look at marketing pitfalls and see how even marketing experts or big brand names can harm themselves and the brands that they're working for, but not considering multiple perspectives of global issues, language, cultural or social norms when they go to a new market. So if you click, you see an example of the Coors beer, which is an American beer, but when they translated their famous motto of "turn it loose" to Spanish, it was translated as "get diarrhea," which is which didn't count for a Spanish idiom or what is meaningful there. So that was a big problem in the Spanish market. Or if you click and see another example of KFC when they were moving to Chinese market, and the motto of finger licking good translated to eat your fingers off, which was a very scary and disgusting translation for Chinese customer. So it is very important, even a simple language translation can lose totally its meaning. So you have to be mindful of different perspectives, different norms when you you go to different places. Next slide, please. Another tactic is to practice balanced thinking. So we can help our students to carefully consider arguments for and against a situation. What are the strengths or the weaknesses of such thinking? How you can provide arguments for and counter arguments against this idea that you have, or how you can provide evidence that supports or contradicts this event or this idea. So by these, by asking these questions in our classrooms or even in our personal life while we are sharing, media in our social networks, we can help each other to understand other people's perspectives. We can help to be more balanced thinking. And another example, if you click please, is in my advertising class that, I'm sorry, in my consumer behavior class, where, some students are new to the area of marketing, to the field of marketing, and some of them thinking of advertising as an extension of deception. So if you click, you may agree with them that in rare cases, advertising could be bad, very bad, but in other cases, as you can see in the next example, advertising could be really, really good. This advertisement is an advocate of using less plastic, and caring more for our planet. So like many things around us in life, advertising per se, it couldn't be bad or couldn't be good. It depends how you use it and how to use it to send a message to your audience. So balanced thinking is very important. Next slide, please. Another strategy comes from the book by Dr. Edward de Bono that talks about the 6 thinking hats. And what he tries to explain in this book is the idea of parallel thinking. And that provides a structure for groups of people to plan thinking process in details and cohesive way, and doing, an effective way of thinking. So by using different color of hats, like blue hat is the process, white hat is the fact. So when you have the white hat on, you cannot talk about anything but the facts, but the proved evidence. When you put the red hat on, you can talk about your feelings, what your gut feeling is about that topic or that issue. The green hat is creativity, the yellow hat is benefits, and the black hat is the cautious or some pitfalls that you may think, or some disadvantages in this idea or in this process. So when you put these hats on, this helps you, get organized and structure and think about, many aspects of one idea without being biased, and you are not even aware of that bias. And this is a very helpful method, even between couples, between friends, between parents and kids, and we have used it in our home and loved it. So I encourage you to practice this in your classrooms or even in your personal life. Next slide, please. And the last tactics that I want to talk about is to help our students to play devil's advocate or to role playing. With these kind of activities, we can help our students to ask incisive questions, to look at the scenarios from other people's perspective, and to identify hidden assumptions or to pose alternative explanations or solutions to problems. So when you do this, you may arrive at different conclusions when you put yourself at somebody else's shoes. And this is very valuable for our students to practice. Click, please. If you see, this is an example that I have in one of my courses where I ask about advertising to children. And is this a good thing, or is this a bad thing, or is this a neutral thing, depending on what perspective you're looking at it. So I ask my students to look at it from the parent's perspective, from the ethical marketer's perspective, why we need to have advertising for children, or even from children's perspective or from educators' perspective. When you put all these together, when you play role at these different roles, then you will understand a more comprehensive picture of the issue. With that, I will give the floor back to Dr. Cardenas to wrap up our presentation.
Thank you very much. So these are kind of some final thoughts of what we presented, and also given our session's topic of going beyond the discussion forum. Current events and technologies are great ways to kind of engage students. Current events are usually on the top of mind of students, and technologies help bring to life the content the students are trying to learn. Look for intersection of topics. An example of this is, the topics of social causes and the topic of entrepreneurship and business. So as many of you know, there's a concept of social entrepreneurship. So creating new business to solve social problems. So those types of kind of bringing together of big topics really is interesting to students, I believe. Global perspectives are also interesting ways of looking at different issues. Different cultures are interesting to most students. And as we continue to be more interconnected as global citizens, I think it's important to incorporate global perspectives. Faculty should also be prepared, like Dr. Abel mentioned, to manage controversial topics. I think he gave great examples of what the role of faculty should be in those scenarios. And really, the last kind of final thought is, critical thinking is really not easy. As Dr. Abel mentioned, it's a specific skill, and there's steps that that you need to take to critically think. So it's important to be patient with students, and it's important to be patient with your colleagues, because it's not that easy. It's not that easy to critically think. So with that, I hope you guys liked the content, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
We're pressed on time at this point, so we're going to go ahead and forego the question and answer section. But Dr. Cardenas, Dr. Sadeghinejad, and Dr. Abel, I want to personally thank you for your thought-provoking social movements presentation. And also, thanks to everyone for attending this session. I am Dr. William Woods, and we hope that you'll take a moment to complete the brief feedback survey at the link posted in the chat. And we encourage you to attend the next featured presentation, Leveraging Artificial Intelligence to Drive Authentic Discussion, which takes place at 11:30 a.m. Pacific States Time. Remember that you can access all presentations via the TLC online event page on Eventbrite, and can continue the conversation and engage with conference participants on social media by using the hashtag @AUTLC. After the fifth session, there will be a panel discussion involving all presenters and led by Dr. Charles Holm. Enjoy the rest of TLC.